ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between.
He's a South Texan poppy poet living that hashtag middle-class gay life. It's Chibbi.
She's a little bit Selena, a little bit J-Lo, and a whole lot of Pisces. It's Raqui.
And this is Words and Shit,
the show where you get to know the person behind the poetry.
Brought to you by Write Art Out
and Gemini's Productions.
Hi, friend. How you doing?
Hey, friend. We trucking, we hanging in here. We living life as best as possible, right?
Really we are. Yes, friend. I just wanted to say it's so great to see you after such a long stretch, right? We're back, and I know that we work together perfectly in unison as co-hosts. But what the audience doesn't know is that there's actually sometimes 4 co-hosts.
That's right. That's right. Because lurking somewhere in the background, snoring right over there is my dog Cookie, and I know you got probably right at your feet.
Right at my feet. It's
Son chicles, like literally. I'm just walking to refill my water, and she's like, doo, 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 following me, and then I just walk back, and she's like, okay, I guess we're going back. And I'm like, you could have just stayed laying down.
Exactly. She has this whole entire apartment to herself, my dog. And then she's like, no, I want to be in this really small corner right here, and just to be right next to you. And it's like, great. Great.
When we're sitting in the couch and we have the recliners up, she like just wants to curl underneath the recliner. And it's like, right, you have your bed over there. I don't understand. What's one of the funny things your dog does?
Ooh, one of the funny things that my dog does is that she's literally has so much attitude like a cat. She's not affectionate at all.
Wow.
Like, yes, she's not affectionate. She thinks I'm an embarrassing mother. Every time I'm like, Pilot, come cuddle with me, come do this. She just looks at me with this like biggest side eyes and like sighs and then walks away from me.
That's hysterical.
Yes. And it's so like weird because when I meet other dogs and they're so energetic and they want to be on top of me, I'm like, it's too much. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's what dogs are supposed to do, but my dog doesn't do that at all.
That's funny. I think the funny thing Cookie does is like, so when we feed her, she won't eat unless she does tricks, right? Like she's a routine animal is what I'm saying, right? And so like even if we put the bowl down and we're like, go ahead, she'll like be like, are you sure? Is this a trick? And then we have to make her like, shake, spin, play dead, crawl, all sorts of things. And then it's like, go. And then she devours it. Like she doesn't give herself permission to eat unless, like we give her permission to eat, which is so funny in dogs.
And it's so like the opposite with me. Pilot has to give me permission to go up to her. To be blessed by her presence.
And it's this notion of permission, right? And what we give ourselves or what somebody else gives us was a very strong topic of conversation with our host today, Ali Ong. So I want to, before we get into it, I want to ask you, what's something that you've given yourself permission to do?
I think for me, what I've given my 2 things, right? To be very playful and kind of see what it feels like to be someone in my 30s, child-free. And instead of devoting a lot of my time and energy on a child or a small human or another person, I'm kind of regaining that and putting it back into myself. And then also just kind of giving me permission to really delve into my 30s. We got little flabs here and there. We got little lonjas. We got some double chin sometimes, some white hairs, some hairs that are growing in places that I've never seen before. We're getting there. And it's just really just to give myself permission to look in the mirror and be like, I'm beautiful. And it is a privilege to grow and change, right? Yeah. How about you, friend? What do you give yourself permission to do?
I think something that I've been doing is giving myself permission to rest, and permission to play, right? That not everything needs to be capitalistic production, right? You don't always need to be on. And I do a lot. Okay. Let's be honest. I do a lot.
Yes. Yes, you are probably one of the hardest working people I've no.
I think it's because I allow myself also to disconnect, right? And have moments where like I'm gonna go play a video game or I'm just gonna sleep, you know? I'm going to make sure that my body has time to recover before I get back into it so that when I do, I can get back into it at 100%, but also, you know, with laughter, with enjoyment, with you know, a light heart without feeling like things are a burden, right?
Yes.
And I love that we got into this idea of play, right? And how do we liberate ourselves in our work and in our lives with Ali Ong. So I'm so excited to share this conversation with our audience. Ali Ong is a Gaysian poet and editor from Seattle, a Pushcart Prize and Best New Poets nominee. Their work has appeared in The Rumpus, Muzzle Magazine, Anmly, and elsewhere. Ali is a 2023 National Endowment for the Arts Fellow and MacDowell Fellow. Their debut poetry collection, Let the Moon Wobble, such a playful title, is forthcoming from Alice James Books in 2025. Find them at alisoong.com or on Twitter and Instagram at The Ocean Is Gay. This is our conversation with Ali. Ali, welcome to Words and Shit.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you. I think especially for me, because I know that you are a fellow Pisces.
Ooh, when's your birthday? Is that secret information?
No, it's March 7th. Not at all.
No, I'm March 9th.
Okay, March Pisces. I love that. We're so close. Oh, wow. Okay. I love this already. See, I'm already hyped.
This is going to be a very emotional episode. I'm already feeling this.
There will be tears, maybe. We'll see.
You know what? I'm down for it. I've just been in like a sad girl summer. So let's keep it going. Let's close it off with another good cry session.
You are actually not the first person to say that it's sad girl summer. I think musically too, if you listen to like Latin music this summer, it's been very like sad girl summer embracing.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it's what is it? The Venus in retrograde. Everybody's like breaking up this season.
Yeah, Mercury just went retrograde like today or yesterday, so it's retrogrades all over the place.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say this. Not even 2 minutes into the conversation, we're already talking about astrology. Like for the listeners out there, if you haven't figured this out by now, this is a really queer podcast. Okay.
Yes, and I'm here for it. Let's go into it. As much as we do want to go into it, we will definitely get to know you a little bit more. But I want to go and ask, how is your heart today, Ali?
Ooh, my heart's a little tired. It's been a long day, long week. I'm feeling a little low energy, but I'm very happy to be here. So I already feel this conversation kind of like revitalizing me.
You're welcome.
I know every time that Rocky and I record an episode, like at the end, we just feel like reinvigorated, re-inspired, rejuvenated. Maybe that's just the eye cream, but like, you know, feeling like youthful and vibrant and just very, very much inspired by everything that we hear. So we're excited to have you here. And we hope that energy, you know, we're just sharing energy is all we're really doing in life, right? And so passing it back and forth. So we're here for it.
Exactly.
Before we really dive into the conversation, we like to open up with a little segment that we call speed dating. So we're going to ask you 4 questions, 2 questions each. And just to kind of, you know, skim the surface of who is Ali Ong. And we encourage you, because it's speed dating, to answer them as concisely as possible. All right. But we understand that sometimes answers need explanations, but, you know, as concisely as you can. So
I'll do my best.
Very good. First question. Which meme best describes you currently?
Oh man. I feel like I take in so many memes every day. It's hard to think. Hmm. I'm already failing at the speed part of this.
That's okay.
Totally fine.
Yes.
Um, I think I'm that, like, do you know the meme with the goose with, like, a knife in its mouth? I don't know. I think
Yes,
that's the one that's coming to mind, so I'm just gonna go with that one.
perfect. I love it. Or like the little chick, right? It's like the little chick with like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
perfect Pisces energy. I feel like that is really cute, but don't mess with us. All right. I'm gonna just try to really keep just like the Pisces energy to the speed dating because I want to
Mhm,
like just highlight that.
mhm.
But because we are Pisces, and I just want to know what's your favorite body of water to play in?
Oh, that's a really sweet question. I live in Seattle. I love Lake Washington. It's so beautiful. And I love there's this one park called Seward Park, and you can like see the mountain and play in the water, and it's just so beautiful, especially at this time of year. So Lake Washington's gonna be my answer.
Love it. Love
Okay.
it.
My next question, and I ask this of everyone, what is your favorite thing to eat? Like, what's your favorite dish?
Dish. Um,
Or it could be a snack. Just what's your favorite thing to eat? Mhm.
Okay, because I think my favorite thing to eat is strawberries. I can eat,
Mm,
like, kind of inhumane quantities of strawberries if I'm allowed to. But, yeah, strawberries and any kind of berry, really. It's blackberry season, so I've been eating a lot of those too.
love it. Love it. Love it. Do you when you eat your strawberries, do you like put lime or chili or you just like or
Ooh.
sugar or my mom would love to always put sugar or whipped cream on top of them. Sometimes that's
Sometimes if I'm feeling extra sweet toothy, I'll put some whipped cream on them, but usually I just eat 'em, I don't know, I guess plain. I was gonna say raw, but that sounded wrong.
no, it's not at all. We're here for it. Eat them raw. All right. So then my last question, because I really see that you bring a lot of color into just your everyday. So what is your favorite color combination that perfectly describes you?
Ooh, these are
Yeah.
great questions. I really do like purple and gold. I
Mm,
don't like that it's associated with, like, monarchies because that's not really my vibe, but I think there's something so wonderful about that color combination, and, like, the kind of cool and warm together, and it gives good vibes.
Mm, mm.
love it. And then you know what? You can be royalty if you want. That is who you are deep inside. So own it. You can own it.
Thank you.
You can be royalty without being monarchies.
There you go.
Yes. Um, well, thank you. I love this like little speed dating with you. And as we're getting to know you more through your writing, can you please share us a poem?
I'd love to. Okay. This poem's called Ode to My Father's Accent. The way the letter R rumbles from the cavern of his throat through the top of his teeth, gently, a passing freight train or a faraway thunderstorm. The alchemy of his language. Eavesdropped becomes eardropped, and flirting becomes floating. The way he says my mother's name, soft, the sculpted solid, syllables ringing clear like notes from a gamelan. The way I train my tongue to imitate his, words clumsy and labored in my imposter mouth. The way the plumber shakes my father's hand and says, I'll call you Bill instead. The way my teachers refuse his gaze as they ask me to translate his English into my own. The way he used to rub my back on sleepless nights, his hands cracked into tectonic plates. The same hands that sold churros from a cart on the boardwalk, scrubbed grime out of a movie star's kitchen sink, loaded boxes of frozen food into an 18-wheeler truck by moonlight. The same hands that never learned how to use chopsticks. The way he has to ask for a fork when we go to our favorite noodle house. The way the waiter says, "How spicy do you want your food?" And my father replies, "Make me cry." The way my father does not speak while he eats, bent over the bowl in reverence. The way he taught me that long noodles signify a long life, and to cut them is bad luck. So we slurp them up so loudly, the whole room stops to look.
Oh my god. Oh my god, noodles. Oh my god. My
I
favorite food is ramen, so, like, you, like, have me
Mm.
there. But, no, I love the way that you brought your family into the conversation, right? To make points about larger conversations. Um, do you like, I find it incredibly difficult to write about my family. Do you was is that a challenge for you, or how do you navigate interweaving such personal memories and moments into something that eventually becomes very public?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot as I'm thinking about my first book coming into the world at some point. Um, soundboard's cracking me up. Um, but yeah, I feel very protective of my family, and I want to be very careful about how I present them in their stories for the world, especially like I think I really want to avoid sort of a any sort of like trauma porn, immigrant trauma narrative that seems like exploitative or disrespectful. So it's something I think about a lot, and I only ever want to portray my family and their stories with respect and hopefully with giving them some agency too.
Mhm.
Um, my parents, I write about my parents a lot. They've read and listened to a lot of my poems, which is kind of alarming sometimes, but they're very supportive of my writing, and I trust that they would tell me if they didn't like how they were being portrayed, but I take great care to write about them in a way that feels good and respectful.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that, especially because coming from like immigrant families, we want to protect our families so
Mhm.
much because they've done incredible things just to get us into the position that we are right now, right?
Yeah.
And as I've been reading your poetry as well, you do incorporate a lot of what it means to come from an immigrant background in suburbia, right?
Mhm.
And also navigating like whiteness in that suburban area, and then whiteness within your own family and your own
Mhm.
household as well.
Mhm.
So I'm guessing like how do you, yes, how are you navigating and the whiteness that you experience in your life and that your family also experiences, and how does that, and why do you think that it's important to talk about that as navigating as a person of color, a queer person of color, nonetheless?
Totally. Yeah, it's really complicated, and I think I try to be aware of how much space I take up as someone with who is part white and with proximity to whiteness. Um, but it's complicated because I feel like the way that I am read and racialized kind of changes depending on the context I'm in. So
Mhm,
it's sometimes hard for me to know how I'm being perceived or read by other people. I think growing up in suburban Connecticut, I did frequently feel like the other. There were not that many people of color in my town, in my school. So I think I had that experience early on of being kind of racialized as other. And then as I grew up and started being in more diverse spaces, I was like, oh my, I realized more that how my whiteness is also such a big part of me and a part that I have to reckon with. And I'm still kind of working that out, I guess, but it is something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring the subject of the, the otherness, right? And so one of it being race, but also the other being, just being queer, like that is another layer to it. And when we talk about family, oftentimes in queer communities, we talk about the idea of like chosen family, right? And what that means. And I'm curious, like where was that point where you maybe found that you could have a chosen family or found your chosen family, and how the two families maybe do or do not like come together, right?
Yeah, totally. Um, I think the first time that I really encountered the concept of chosen family and found my own chosen family was in college. I went to a small liberal arts college in Massachusetts, and it was a women's college, which meant that there were a lot of queer people there. Like everyone was like a lesbian or like trans or something, so that was kind of like my first time being around a lot of queer people and seeing the ways that queer people form such deep connections, often because we don't have the support of our biological families. And I'm really lucky. Like I have a very good relationship with my parents. I don't have very close relationships with my extended family. That's a little more complicated. I'm so sorry. Get off! My cat's on the counter.
Cats are part of our chosen family.
Yeah, I mean, I call my cat my son all the time, so he's definitely part of my chosen family. But yeah, I think in college, as I started to befriend more queer people and explore my own queerness, I kind of discovered how special and unique those chosen family bonds are. And as I've gone through life, I've been fortunate enough to be in mostly queer spaces everywhere I am, which I really lucked out in. So I feel like I've just been kind of accumulating more people into my chosen family as the years go by.
Yeah, and I really, when you're talking about your chosen family, there are some of your poems that really bring in your chosen family and playfulness, right? You bring so much joy, and like you could just tell that you're really just having a great time with your friends and your loved ones. And I'm just trying to see if, like, is playfulness always been something that you want to explore, or did you feel like my inner child needed to be playful, and this is these are the people that bring out the best child version of me?
I love that. I think one of my favorite things about poetry is play. I really love playing with language and sound, musicality, rhyme, syntax. I love how many puns you can get away with using in poems and somehow making it seem literary. I love form. I think it's all that I like. The process of writing poems is very playful for me. I think when I first started writing poems, it was kind of a way for me to express a lot of sadness that I
Right.
was feeling, sadness and loneliness. Growing up as a very like angsty teen, a lot of my early poems were really depressing, which is I think what I needed at the time. But then as I got older, and especially as I started reading poems publicly in front of people, I was like, I don't like reading these sad poems. The audience doesn't really like hearing these sad poems. So I need to do something about this. So I kind of started intentionally writing poems that were more playful or channeling joy and happiness and love and other things besides just sadness. I think I still do write plenty of sad poems, but I think the ultimate takeaway I want people to have from my poetry is that like joy is the thing. Joy and connection are the things that can help, I don't know, make this depressing world bearable.
Yeah, of course.
What's the
Because
hard part? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate that. I feel like in my 30s, I wanna invite more play, right?
Yeah.
Especially because all of us, all 3 of us are queer and people from immigrant families,
Mhm.
right? And I think there's so much shame and guilt that we, like, really consume and harbor within ourselves.
Mhm.
And when I was reading some of your poetry, especially, like, the bleaching of your facial hair and the upper lip, like, I don't know how many times I used to bleach my arms because I'm like, "They're too dark, and I'm in Texas, and I need to, like, achieve this, like, closeness to whiteness," and it's like, "Why did I do that?" There's so much violence, right? And I kinda wanna go into you really do address how different forms of violence are inflicted into your body as someone who's a person of color in suburban Connecticut, or even to your, like, gynecologist. Uh, so I kinda wanna, like, ask you, why do you think it's so important to address that? And what is so special about bringing like, an immigrant queer, view on it?
Yeah. Um, I think it's important for me, it kind of starts as a way of processing the different violences I experience or witness in my life. Writing about it is very helpful for my kind of internal process. But also, I think it's important to, I don't know, not shy away from the more ugly or unpleasant realities of just being in a queer body of color, you know? Um, and I think it's also writing poems about difficult or violent or traumatic experiences is also kind of a way of reclaiming agency over them and being like, I'm the one who gets to tell this story how I want to. I feel like there's definitely some power in that.
Yeah. I really like, as we were talking about play and just, queerness and, uh, reclaiming agency too, like, I really see your work in conversation with Chen Chen's work, just, like,
Mhm.
very much, like, owning the queerness, right? And so, like, I'm curious, like, was there ever was there, like, a coming out moment in your poetry where you're like, "I can talk about this," right? In a public forum that's, like, you finally felt like you had, like, permission to just express yourself in that way, right? And
Mhm.
floodgates are open, and let's just go, people. We queer up in this bitch.
Yeah. um, I don't know if there was one specific moment, but I think there were a lot of writers like Chen, who I will say is also March 9th Pisces, we're birthday twins, so
Yeah.
I feel like we're kindred spirits. Um, but but yeah, there are so many poets that I read and looked up to as I was first starting to write poetry who did write kind of just unapologetically about being queer,
Mm,
about sex even, which is something that, I, as many of us do, had a lot of hangups about talking about. Um, and I think, well, when I was first discovering poetry beyond like the canon that I was made to read in school, I kind of found poetry through like the like deaf poetry jam YouTube videos. Like those were really, I like when I first discovered those, I was in like middle school, and I was like, I had no idea that poetry was so alive, because the way it was taught in school seemed so stagnant and in the past. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize that poetry can be so present, and that people can write about things like being a person of color or being queer and have that be like legitimate poetry. I didn't know that was a thing. So just getting that sort of permission from those poets was really powerful for me. And I feel like I'm still learning so much from my peers about how to be braver in my poems.
I mean, I know that you're still learning, but the fact that you're gonna have your first book, your first collection, come out in 2025. I feel like that is close, but too far. I can imagine you. But if you can give us a sneak peek and give us another poem as well, maybe within your debut collection.
Absolutely. Okay. This one is called Not Gay as in Happy. Queer as in death to cops and politicians. May they live their every waking moment afraid of what the people will do to them. Not queer as in slapping a rainbow onto a Wells Fargo debit card. Gay as in let's hurl a Molotov cocktail through the window of the bank at nightfall and kiss while we watch the glass shatter like a supernova. Not gay as in pride flags, queer as in flagging, as in leather dykes and deviance, as in the way my fist fits perfectly inside my lover, the way their name in my notifications makes my clit quiver, the way their mouth makes me melt as sticky as ice cream during a heat wave. Queer like I'm so fruity, I may as well be a smoothie. I'm as flamboyant as the flamingo and as buoyant as the bumblebee blowing bubbles behind a bounce house. Gay like the ex-girlfriend of my ex-girlfriend is my ex-girlfriend, and we're all going dancing in matching pleather pants. This Pride Month, I'm partnering with the freaks and the fairies to strike fear into the hearts of fascists. Let's untether our shame and toss it in the dumpster. Let's shout this prayer so loud our lungs collapse. Dear God, dear Bjork, dear everything, may the fruits inherit the earth. May the future we deserve spring into being with a swish of our limp wrists.
Love it.
Raquel is like, stop writing about me like that.
Shh, you're a little too loud, but no. I love it. Wow. No, just like I'm blushing a little bit. No, I really love it. And again, it's so interesting because you're talking about how, sex, just writing about queer sex, right? And talking about our kinks and talking about just really body sex positivity in so many ways in this poem is just absolutely beautiful. It's yummy, it's delicious. I want to eat it up and lick it up just like you're describing. You're welcome. I guess with specifically for that poem or just in your writing in general, do you have like a queer ancestor or elder that you is like your muse or that you find inspiration in when you write?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have anyone specific in mind, but I do often think about like who are the queer people in my ancestry, like who maybe didn't have the opportunity to be as open or as loud about it as I am, and like I try to kind of channel those voices when I write. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And I think it really it shows how much you are connected to the community in your writing, right? Wherein you speak of this place from we, but also a very personal, like how you yourself would move through these spaces. And I want to know like how much has how much has community like influenced your writing, helped you in some ways, or where have you found that kind of like inspiration in community? I know you and I were in community at Tin House last year, which I don't remember if it was you, but somebody said like it felt like Lambda Light because like everybody was fucking queer at Tin House.
I didn't say that, but I did definitely notice that.
Yeah. So like wherein does community influence your work? Because I think oftentimes people think that writing, especially writing poetry, is such a solitary act, but that's just like not true, right?
Yeah, totally. I think I used to kind of treat writing that way too when I was first starting to write. I was like, no one can ever see these poems. They can never leave my journal. I'm just like locked in my room writing in my diary. But that's not that fun for that long. And I think I really started to kind of find a writing community in when I was living in Boston. Um, which is where I lived before I moved to Seattle. And there was this one space called EMW Bookstore. I don't think they're currently active, but it was an Asian American centered, but like all people of color were welcome. But it started as kind of an Asian American space, and they had a monthly open mic night, which I think is one of the first places where I ever read poems in front of people was at that open mic. And the people that I met there were my first real kind of poetry community. And that was really special because it made me feel like I actually did belong in the world of poetry. And I also enjoyed going to the there's the place in Boston called the Cantab Lounge, and they do kind of is it weekly or monthly open mic nights? It's been a long time, but that was one of the other first poetry spaces I was in. And since then, I found so many other wonderful poetry spaces and communities, like Tin House. Like, where Chibby, did you do the Dreamyard Fellowship with me too? Okay, yeah, I think that's how we met. Like Dreamyard, that was also really wonderful. And I think just realizing that there are so many vibrant community-centered poetry spaces like outside of academia was really important because I didn't have the greatest experiences in like navigating poetry in academia. So I think being part of different poetry communities was so important for me to not only just like find friends and trusted readers, but also to help me feel like to give me permission to be able to share my poems and feel like people actually wanted to hear them.
Love that. Yeah, I feel like you keep going back to permission, right? So many times we always seek permission because we're trying to get validated and we're just like, we need permission. So when did you allow yourself to give yourself permission to write?
I think for a long time, I was one of those people who was like, oh, I'm like an aspiring writer, which now when I hear other people say that to me, I call them out. I'm like, no, if you write, you're a writer. That's literally all it takes. But I think, I don't know. I don't know exactly what kind of validation I was looking for, but I feel like I did need someone to tell me you are a writer before before I actually felt like I could call myself that. And I think once I started reading poems at open mics and hearing people's reactions, and also once I started like submitting poems for publication and getting published a bit, I felt like that kind of recognition kind of helped give me permission, which I hate to say because like you shouldn't need that, you know, it should it should just come from inside you. But I think in all honesty, I did kind of need other people to tell me like you are a writer in order to truly internalize it. But you know, I was a writer ever since I was able to write. I would always write little books when I was in like elementary school. And so, you know, it like I was a writer before anyone else was paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, we're all trying to decolonize our minds, right? Wherein we've been taught by the system that external validation is what gives us, you know, permission, right?
Right.
I don't clearly you are not in that aspiring section anymore. A Dreamyard Fellow, a Tim House Fellow, a recipient of the National Endowment of the Arts, McDowell Fellow, you know, like
Just listing them off.
Listen, I mean,
go ahead, Chibby. Keep going. Keep going.
Especially, you know, like they carry such weight and such clout, but you know, like outside of the quote unquote permission, recognition, legitimization that those kinds of fellowships give someone, like personally, like how have those fellowships impacted you or will impact you? I'm not sure if you've done McDowell yet or will or where that's at in the process of your new book, you know, but like, what does that really practically look like and mean for you, you know?
Yeah, I'm doing McDowell later this year, so TBD on that one.
Yeah.
Although I'm very much looking forward to it. It'll be my first residency. But with the NEA in particular, like just money is life changing.
Yes, it is. Yes,
And
it
I
is.
feel like there's kind of a taboo around talking about it, but I will say that just like getting that money from the NEA and having kind of no strings attached, just be like they were just like, this is to make your life easier, kind of, was really, really powerful, because it just gave me more freedom to be able to send my book out to different book contests, because those are expensive, and like submit my poems to things and apply to more things and like take classes and things like that.
Yeah.
It really allowed me to invest in myself as a writer, with more ease, rather than having to be like, oh, I can't afford to send my book to this contest because the fee is $30, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But it's like poetry is kind of a pay to play game in a way, which really sucks. But yeah, so just having like getting money for it was really wild and made my life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous, you know, to think about, because poetry is probably the least lucrative art form there is out there,
Right.
you know? So, like, why does it cost so much to be a poet when there's no return?
Yes, that's when you need like a glucose guardian to really come in and just be like, "Here, I love your words. Like, I'll give you all the money so you can do everything you want."
No, bring back like Renaissance patrons, the
Yeah.
people, the rich people who would like pay a painter a bunch of money to just sit around and like paint their portrait all the time. Like we need more of that.
Yes, and especially in this economy. In this economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, one of us lives in New York because they're crazy.
Yes, it is very expensive.
Yeah.
But
You know, because obviously that money like has given you the freedom to, like you said, submit your work, to do that work. You have McDowell coming to you in the future. This book that's coming out in 2025, which Raquel says can't come soon enough. Tell us about this book. What can we expect? I mean, I think you know, like based off your work, we kind of know what to expect, but like, what are your hopes and dreams for this book? Where are you centering it? Tell us everything that you're legal to tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this book, I don't know, there's so much pressure, I feel like, on the first book. It feels like there's a whole lot of anticipation around it for anybody, and that feels a little scary. But this book, I started writing it at the like early pandemic, when I was in my MFA program. That's kind of where those poems blossomed, and so a lot of them were written at a time where I was feeling very isolated and uncertain, and kind of like what it felt like the world was ending. It still feels like the world is ending, you know? So I was writing a lot about, you know, being alive during the apocalypse and just trying to survive, and thinking about what are the things that make life worth living for me, basically, which again turns out to be love and friendship and queer community and joy. So my book is kind of just an exploration of that, I guess. Like, how do we as queer people of color navigate all of these concurrent apocalypses that we're going through? And yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited, a little nervous about the book coming out. I hope that people will like it. I hope that it will connect with people, and that it'll be, I don't know, both. I want to think of it as like an offering to my communities and to people who share my identities, and to people who don't share my identities. Hopefully anyone will be able to get something from it. But yeah, I want it to be a way for me to connect with even more people. I'm excited about the idea of like doing a little tour and getting to read it, in all the different cities I love, with the people I love. I definitely want to go to New York, so I'll hit you up.
Yes, please. Yes,
About,
please.
yeah, I don't know about Texas, but we'll see.
You know, despite its reputation, it is it's a very queer space also.
It is a very queer space, especially San Antonio. I will say that. I will let people know.
Yeah. I've only been to Austin, and that was very queer, so who knows?
Very much.
That was so beautiful. I feel like we can continue to just talk and talk and talk. But you know what? I think that's where the anticipation is gonna end with your book, with Let the Moon Wobble, which is forthcoming from Alice James Books. Again in 2025.
I know.
2 years. Wow, way to be a tease, Allie. Such a tease.
I need that time to like be emotionally ready.
It's okay.
It
You
is
know, as long as we have your consent, you know, you have your consent to like for the world to read. Let's take your time. Take your time.
it
But
is
yeah.
extreme is what it is.
So I want to unfortunately end, but let's end on a beautiful high note, right? Obviously, we have Let the Moon Wobble be your new debut collection, but what would be the title of your poem for the next chapter of your life?
Wow. Oh, dang. I guess I would want it to be something about, like, something about, like, oh my god.
I kind of really love seeing like poets just like squirm with words. It's like y'all are brilliant, but this question is tripping y'all up.
No,
Yeah, I don't know. I would call it, Successful by Ariana Grande by Ali Ong.
Yay, I love it.
I'm trying to manifest success.
Yes,
There we go.
that is a 100% valid answer, and we will take it. Absolutely. Love that. Have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being here with us and taking the time to just chat about yourself, your experiences, your work, your process. If you want to be found, if people want to find you and your work, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I used to call it X. For now, at The Ocean is Gay. And my website is AlisonOng.com. So those are the places you can find me.
There we go. So thank you again, everyone. If you don't already, please follow Allie. The Ocean is Gay. In case you didn't know, scientifically, factually, it is. So please go follow Allie so that you can get their upcoming book, which drops in 2025. So yeah, thank you again, Allie. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you both so much.
What a sweet, very sweet, very Pisces episode today.
Yes, it was a wet episode, 100%. There was
in so many ways. The rare occasions where I get Chibbi to blush.
This is an adult podcast, okay, 100%. But I loved how we just kept coming back to this idea of joy, of discovery, right? Of giving ourselves permission to things, because oftentimes, especially in the queer community, we've had to fight for permission, or we didn't know if we were allowed. And same in immigrant communities, like, are we even allowed to be here? And the fact of the matter is we are. We've always been here. Low-key out to my poem called "We Have Always Been Here."
Little drop there. No, I love that, especially because, do we have permission to even dream for ourselves when our families have expectations of us and we feel like we have to live out their dreams when we ourselves have permission to live very full lives that are not underneath the scope and the imagination of our families, right?
How dare you bring dreaming into the conversation? Like in the sense that, like, yeah, that's why a lot of undocumented immigrants are called dreamers, right? Like, because we are dreaming of like this possibility of what like our futures could be, and like we're just waiting for the U.S. government to give us permission to just be ourselves, right? and we don't need to.
We don't need to. I was about to say, I was like, fuck the government.
100%. Personal is political, and fuck the government.
But I think that's exactly what Ali is talking about. Just like, fuck these systems and let me live my best life, know? And it was beautiful. So I cannot wait for 2025.
Yeah. Until I'm going to continue to just stalk Ali on Twitter and see what it is that I can find. That's a lot of their poems are out there, so make sure you follow them.
Yes.
But
well, for that, yeah.
Speaking of dreaming, I know it's late for you on the East Coast, so let's thank some people and say goodbye. First and foremost, we want to thank the listeners. Thank you for being here with us at Words and Shit. We make this podcast for poetry lovers like you out there, and we want to thank you for supporting us and these beautifully spoken words of the poets that we have on our show. So thank you for still rocking with us.
And we also want to give a shout out to Chris Conde, who created the theme music that he produced. We love you. Thank you so much. It just keeps us bopping every single episode.
Shout out to queer artists, that bass line. And thank you to Write Art Out in the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture, whose support has helped produce this podcast. We love you.
We're so fancy. Thank you. Keep supporting us and give us more. Be our Coast Guardians. If you have social media and you're not like a complete hermit, please follow us on IG and forever the Bluebird Twitter. No, RIP at Words and Shh. All right. And you could definitely slide into our DMs. You let us know who you want to bring. Maybe we can make our magic happen and we'll surprise you with one of your writers that you wanted to see and hear.
That's right. And as director of this show, I may just say, fuck Twitter, and we're just going to be on Threads. I don't know. We haven't made a decision on this. Same thing. Also, if you are tuning in for the first time, guess what? We have 75 episodes of this show. 75 plus episodes of this show at this point. You can always go watch or listen to past episodes on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, and don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, and like us to the most, to infinity and beyond. So please, without you and your support, and those likes and shares, we're not here without you. So thank you so much. And with that, friends, until next time.
You need to go to bed. Stay safe out there, y'all.
Pretty much. Bye.